How can you reach the next level of teaching? We challenge secondary maths teacher Simon Brilliant to go from good to outstanding. A top inspector observes one lesson. Two experts fine-tune his practice and beef up his presentation. He then gets 2 weeks to take on the advice before the inspector comes back for the final verdict.
And this has actually been a far greater challenge than I thought it was going to be. I thought it would just be a dawdle. I've always had at the back of my mind the idea that one day I would become a teacher. Even spending 10 years in IT, it was always sort of, this is something I really enjoy doing.
Simon Brilliant is in his second year as a maths teacher at Hornsey School for Girls in North London.
How would I use this sample space diagram to work out the probability of getting an ace?
Is it 3 out of 12?
Yes, absolutely. To see young people getting a new concept and understanding it and actually seeing them learn is really, really quite enjoyable. 3 out of 12. What does that reduce down to, though?
A quarter.
The school rates his teaching as good, but head of maths James Crowther thinks there's room for improvement.
Simon's got the capacity to be an outstanding teacher. His strengths are about his love for the subject and he wants students to do well. What he does need to do is to vary his approach sometimes.
What's the probability of getting a picture card and a green counter?
Some of the work can be quite boring and then you're thinking, well, I can't really be bothered to do this, so you just rush it and get most questions wrong.
So once again, it's 3 possibilities out of 12. My weakness is my lessons are pretty boring. Same old, week in, week out. So that's something I'd really like to improve. Quick, run! It's very difficult to get a work-life balance that balances what I feel I should be doing to be fair to my students and what I want to do at home to be fair to my family. Go on, fella.
With 2 days to go before his first observation, Simon discusses how much extra planning he should be doing for his Year 8 class on Friday afternoon.
Why would I want to plan a lesson for Friday afternoon when I know they're going to be tired, they're going to be fractious, it may well be hot?
You plan a lesson appropriate to the students at that time. It would be the fact that, well, it's Friday afternoon, it's period 5, X, Y and Z could go wrong. You're telling me that doesn't make you feel nervous?
Loads of things are going to go wrong. I mean, they're going to be bouncing, they're going to be absolutely bouncing for the first 10 minutes.
If you can foresee all these problems, that's why it's more important to plan for them and to make sure that, you know, you can cover these areas effectively.
And it might not be that there's a full written out Ofsted style lesson plan every single lesson, but nerves are going to be there and you might need some aid memoir. I would think it would be prudent to write a bit more than you would do on a normal day. What I'm hoping for Simon through this experience is that at the end of 2 years of teaching, he'll be challenged again. And Simon's the sort of character that he needs those challenges just to inspire him and to motivate him.
Simon runs through his planning for tomorrow's lesson on patterns and sequences. The plan is to use existing worksheets, but there's a problem.
They don't have enough information on them on their own to be obvious how you're supposed to answer the questions. And the way I want to teach it doesn't tie in very directly with the questions that are on the worksheet. So contrary to what I was saying yesterday, I'm actually now quite concerned that when the HMI comes in, I'm not going to be as prepared for the lesson as I should be.
With hundreds of inspections under her belt, School Inspector Claire Gillies certainly knows an outstanding lesson when she sees one.
I'm now at Hornsey School for Girls and I'm really looking forward to seeing Simon teaching Year 8 maths.
Simon's got just 60 minutes to impress the inspector.
Right, girls, can you get yourself a mini whiteboard and write the next 2 numbers in these 3 sequences? Right, we've done that. Hold them up. Now. Yes, yes. Do it so I can see it. Katrina, yeah. OK, excellent. Now that was easy, yeah? How about, though, when we do something like this? I want you to draw, wipe your boards clean, I want you to draw the next 2 sequences in this sequence.
The key things that you are looking for when you observe a lesson are the children learning? Are the children absorbed? Are they all keen to do their best? Are they all listening to what the teacher is talking about? Do you get the feeling they want to join in?
And we can actually see that the results of that are here. This is the term-to-term rule. What we're going to work out today is now the position-to-term rule. I've simply written the same thing, it's a mapping diagram, but I've now written it across the board.
Because he uses the whiteboard and the interactive board a lot, instead of just him teaching, he could call us up more to get more involved in the lesson, and the people that are like daydreaming in the lesson, he could call them up to help on the board and stuff.
The squares and pentagons, you've all been given things like this with mappings on, which is the first thing we looked at. I don't want you to draw mapping diagrams. I want you to draw position-to-term diagrams. I want you to draw tables like this to work out the general rule for each of these mappings. So do not draw the mapping like they've got here. Imagine it's turned sideways. So draw it like this, not like this. Is that clear what you need to do?
What have you got? What's going to be the bottom line? Perhaps we should think about that, shouldn't we? What's the sort of equivalent to the term on here?
Tired.
Yep. Well, unlikely you'd be buying tires for 12 cars, I must admit, but even so.
Yeah, you need to work out the general rule. But what you could do, which is what I want you to do, is draw a table like this for each of these, yeah, in your book.
How did you do that, Steve? I didn't get it. The third one with the triangles.
We use sheets every lesson, and sometimes they're confusing, but he does help us a lot if we don't understand it.
I think we've pretty much done for today. We've done working from term to term, what to add on each time, and we've worked from position to term. I know.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I do it. I'll start with 1, so... Oh, they stay sat there. Right.
What I liked best about the class was probably when we started playing a game, because then we finished the work and it's like an easy way to end the lesson.
Buzz.
So, how did Simon do?
Thank you very much for letting me share that lesson. Tell me how you think it went sort of as a whole, as the sequence. Did they get the message?
The fact that they actually did concentrate on the work and understand it, and maybe I simplified it a bit too much, but they got it in a way that I was really quite pleased about.
If I look for the sort of strengths of the lesson, it was a relaxed manner. You know, clearly they were sort of getting on with it, so you've obviously established that sort of rapport with them. But in terms of how much maths did they actually really learn and master, I don't think it was a lot. When you did your little starter, you were using colours, weren't you, when you were adding on? And I thought it was tough they didn't have the colours to sort of make it easier for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or even if they had little sticks themselves.
Well, I think you've probably hit the nail on the head, that perhaps we needed to be a bit more practical in several elements of the lesson. The diagram number 1, 2, 3, 4, I was thinking, did they have a clue why we were doing this in terms of actually its application in real life? I mean, one girl said to me, how many spare tires do you have in a car? I thought it was really interesting, you know, before she could do number 1.
Yeah.
She just thought we needed a little touch of help with the realism. And that just might give them that little sparkle that perhaps was missing in the whole lesson, that we didn't really swing along. And perhaps as well, more chit-chat, more turn to your neighbour, turn to this.
Yes.
Get them to help bring them together. And I think we needed to break up that long work session. It was quite a long time, some of them struggling. We could have just all come together again and compared where we got to and who was in a muddle and who wasn't. It would have broken it up for us.
Yes.
We actually did have a few minutes to kill, didn't we, when we did Fuzzbiz. There was more sort of smiles and sense of enjoyment during that little session. And maybe we need to generate that at the beginning of lessons.
Yes,
definitely. You know, bit of fun, bit of, I know it's a hot Friday after, oh, we're going to do these sequences. And I just felt we needed that a little bit more.
I think I've got very lackadaisical with my planning, that I've gone, yes, I know what I'm doing and I can present information in a generally acceptable manner. But to actually do it in a way that engages the students, which makes it an outstanding lesson, which means that they enjoy it, really it's good to get that little kick and go, no, you really must do something better.
Claire Gillies highlighted Simon's need to actively engage his students and to make the context of the mathematics more transparent. Time to bring in the experts. To give Simon some fresh ideas, help comes in the form of Principal Lecturer in Mathematics Alison Clark-Wilson.
I think someone over here hadn't quite got it right.
They start by watching Simon's lesson.
What I'd like to do is have a look at how to encourage a little bit more people involvement and thinking. The range of resources are really quite extensive. These are very stimulating, and I think one of the first things that I would use with most age pupils is to look at these pictures and ask them what they see, to describe what they see. And sometimes when you get pupils to focus on that, the algebra actually falls off the page. So for example, this particular pattern, the fact that there's one red circle in the centre may well have something to do with this one that hangs around in this particular bit of sequence. So if we took the 3 times table, which was where you were starting at, one possible route with this one would be to have some sort of physical representation of it, more than just the numbers, because the numbers can be a turn-off for some pupils. If we were to do something with this sequence ourselves and generate a new set of numbers, so I'm going to do something here, and what I'm going to ask you to do is actually physically with those blocks, build up that pattern in some way that for you represents this new sequence. Can you?
We'll put 2 of these on each.
Having that image there, or those physical objects, do we think that would be a supporting step for the pupils?
Because I mean, we can see that we've now added 2 blocks on each of them. You don't think perhaps that they might find this a little bit childish?
It's an interesting, I mean, a lot of teachers pose that question, and I think my response would be, try it. You know, you've got to give the rationale. It's unlikely a science teacher will take the science equipment away because they can't learn science without it. Well, some of us would argue that we need these resources to learn maths, that they actually support that conceptual development. Okay, what we've got here, Simon, is a set of the sort of mathematical processes, the doing words. And what I'd like you to do to start with is pick out, say, 2 or 3 that you think will, you saw going on in that lesson.
Okay, well that's a really obvious one.
So looking for patterns.
Yeah, definitely doing that.
Yes.
And hopefully understanding basic concepts. I was going to say showing interest and motivation, but I'm not sure if they did show an interest and motivation. I've got a feeling that perhaps they might have showed interest, but I'm not sure the motivation was being there.
I mean, other sources of sort of inspiration, if you like, where pupils might actually see it in the outside world, is very much to do with nature. And it isn't necessarily going to say, look, this is how you're going to use this, but actually gives some bearing to sort of the way in which maths is already out there. And by putting on your mathematical glasses, you're able to help pupils to see it more clearly. What is it that you enjoy about maths?
I just enjoy the sort of logic part of it, that there is a right answer in some cases.
Do you think that possibly presents an issue to students if they sense that it is this game of finding the right answer? Do we need to focus more on promoting the children's thinking? Because although there may be a right answer, there may be many routes to that right answer.
The next step to improving Simon's teaching is to develop his classroom presence. Communications coach Roger Terry starts by analysing Simon's performance.
I don't want you to draw mapping diagrams.
Just do something for me for a second. Don't think of a blue tree.
Do not draw the mapping like they've got here. Okay.
So when we say don't,
yes,
and immediately it brings into the person's mind the thing that you don't want them to do. Say what you want rather than what you don't want, because as soon as you say what you don't want, up pops the blue tree.
Yeah.
Roger gives Simon an exercise to help him reflect on how he comes across in the classroom.
We've got 3 positions on the floor. So the first position is you, and I'm just going to get you to stand here next to me and just take yourself back to that time when you're in the class. We'll just do that beginning piece. Take yourself back there and notice, how that was, what you were feeling like.
I mean, I think even at the time, I was aware that I needed to slow it down.
Yeah.
That I was rushing through and giving them lots and lots of instructions.
Yeah. What we want you to do is go and stand over in position 2. And again, just pop your toes in the paper. And this is like stepping into somebody else's shoes and get a sense of what they'll be receiving from you at that point.
Blah, 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 blah. Load of talk. OK, when you tell me I have to do something, when you tell me, then fine, I'll do that. Because at the moment, I'm not part of the class. I'm
so
still...
they're not feeling part of the group. So we're going to move over here. So this is not you. Right. This is the dispassionate observer, the fly on the wall. And what you're going to be doing is looking at that interaction.
I think perhaps if this person could wait and stop and say, OK, let's all be together on this before you start launching into it.
So slowing the pace down at that particular might help to just get that sense of purpose going.
Yeah, so actually say, this is important, this is what we're going to do.
So a lot of insights come from being the fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Strangely
just
enough.
a wee bit.
So, with Simon's final observation just weeks away, it's back to the classroom to put Alison and Roger's advice into action.
What could this be a graph of? Talk to the person next to you. Work out, what could this graph be? What could this be trying to tell us?
Or it could be like levels goes down. A test or something.
Yeah, test. But
Trying in that lesson to incorporate more getting the girls talking to each other. I feel they enjoy it more, because when you say, you know, talk amongst yourselves about something, they actually get in and actually do talk about it. And yes, Rhiannon.
a temperature of a teacup.
Temperature of a teacup. And Gizem, can you explain what's happening?
Well, it starts off hot and then it's left in the room, so it goes colder and then it stays the same because it stays at room temperature.
Excellent. Yes, it doesn't go down. We'll spend more time on the fun activity because it is a Wednesday afternoon. I think it was quite successful from what I could see. You should have these sheets on your tables. You've got 3 graphs. I want you to cut them out using scissors and stick them in your book. And then, as it says, find an appropriate time scale. So, making a conscious effort to use what Roger said about not saying what not to do. So as what we're saying is this person started with a bar of chocolate, they're absolutely ravenous, and they've just gone... Can you see, though, if we change this from seconds to minutes, it changes the entire way they've eaten it.
And depends on how much chocolate it is. If it's a big one, then it'll take much longer.
If it was a huge cooking bar and it was in seconds, 50 seconds, how much of a pig is this person?
A very big pig.
Yeah. It's really hard work because every lesson takes so much more time to plan. You need to really use your imagination. How can I use these worksheets to get the objective of the lessons over and come up with some interesting activities? That takes half an hour for the boiling water to go down here.
I didn't know how to cook peas.
Simon and Head of Department James watched that first lesson again.
So I've noticed there was an awful amount of you there at the beginning.
Yes, it would have been so much better, now that I've seen it, to go, get the girls up, get them to do more of this, because I'm just talking far too much at them. I don't want you to draw mapping diagrams. I want you to draw position to term diagrams.
It's really interesting because you can see yourself there saying, don't do this, not this, like this, back to here. And also you can see that you think you're being really clear.
I'm being really clear. I'm saying don't do that, do it like this. And look, I've shown you how I want you to do it over here. So here it is, and here, but not like this. And I've even told you to just turn your sheet sideways so it looks like it.
So now we're rotating as well as not doing this. See the point about the clarity of instruction. Taught the lesson, seen the lesson, had all your clinics and note there's things for you to develop. How does that make you feel?
I'm actually quite shocked, I suppose, that I thought it was such a good lesson. Or at least, it was a moderately good one. And now seeing it with all this feedback, you just think, oh, I really do have quite a lot to do. There's quite a lot of work I can do to improve my lessons.
With only a few days to go before Claire returns, Simon is struggling to keep the girls focused.
If I substitute x is 0 into that equation, y equals 3x plus 4, what value of y do I get? Dear, oh dear. Talk to the person next to you, see if you can work it out. If I put in x is 0 into this, what value of y do I get out? If x is 0, what does y equal? Everyone's gone to sleep.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Alison.
How you been getting on?
Simon gets some last-minute tips from Alison.
I'm only concerned that, are we actually sort of having fun?
Yes.
And losing sight of we should be learning some maths here.
So thinking about how you're going to sort of focus them then, with some sort of incentive. So, you know, for example, you know, gathering what they found out in the form of a poster, or doing, you know, 2 minutes presentation to be something to try.
Okay.
Best of luck, Simon.
Thanks for ringing.
Okay, bye.
Bye. When Claire comes back and observes my lessons again, she might not see a great deal of difference. I'm a little bit concerned that I haven't had enough time to sort of practice all the things that I wanted to practice. But we'll just go with that and see what happens.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use exactly what Alison showed me. And we're going to be doing something, we're just going to be ripping that off. Basically, blatantly. So, sorry Alison, but that's life, right?
Claire Gillies is back for the final observation. With all the expert advice behind him now, will Simon have made the grade?
What is a y-intercept? You did this last lesson. Yes, you did. Well, girls, we've got a straight line here, and I've got a y-axis here. So what possibly might a y-intercept be on a straight line? Goodness me. Was it really that long ago? Was it really a long weekend we've all forgotten? The point where a straight line hits the y-axis is the y-intercept. Right, I need one person from each table to come up. You're going to be representing your table in our little follow my leader game. So if I take this counter, this is my green counter, and I move it up to there. Now can you move your counters? Really?
That's not 2. Or we went up too small. We meant to go up another 2, or I don't know.
Today in maths, there was about 5 of us who went up to the board, and Sir would move his counter, say 2 spaces up, and then we'd have to copy it and say 2 spaces up. At some points we kind of got a bit confused, but then we kind of worked it out afterwards. And then we did the same on a sheet of paper with little blocks.
This set of axes, get a load of counters, put them on the lines, like we're doing the dots on the board, and follow the instructions on task 1 to find out what the y-intercept is when you move these lines up or down. Okay? You need to be working in groups, so don't be working individually, work in groups.
So do you have to put the counters on the points?
Yeah.
Wait, put your counters on the line. Where does the line cross?
What do you need to do?
The counters they're really nice to play with, but I would like something straight, because the counters were a bit square and we couldn't quite get the angles right because they had to be straight.
Slightly more amusing. Can you turn over your sheets? Look at task number 7. Number 7 says, write down the next 2 terms of the following sequence. Use your blocks and make patterns on this that represent the first 4 terms of that sequence. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay.
1, 4, take away 1.
Can you come up with other ones? Okay, so I want the first 4 of that, but can you come up with another one? See what you do, play around with the blocks, see if that helps you.
It's just square, we're just doing square numbers. What else can we do with squares?
Does it change the way you rearrange it? It's all very well having just the numbers, but if you rearrange them, does it make a different pattern?
Props that we have do help because they give you a physical example of the word that you're supposed to be doing rather than just a piece of paper.
Kawana, can you explain what yours is doing?
Mine is a square number, so basically 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, and so on.
And this is exactly the same as your ponds investigation. Where you did a little square pond and you said, how many slabs do we have to put around the outside of it? What are we doing to get the next number?
Adding 4.
We're adding 4. So what's the problem with only having 2 numbers at the beginning?
You can do different things with them.
Yeah, so if we only have 2 numbers for a sequence, it's not really enough information. Right, girls. I've got... Oh, I haven't even got that.
Tell me how you think it went sort of as a whole.
Getting the girls to use the blocks works really well. And they're working nicely in groups. And, you know, once they've got the obvious one of add 3.
Add 3, yes.
Then some of them went off and found all sorts of different shapes.
Yes, they certainly got the point that there are lots of different ways of going on from a sequence like that. And then look back to the sort of first half on about straight lines and axes.
I mean, it was supposed to be a continuation of what we did last lesson.
Right.
Repeating that, but it just did not work. They didn't understand either moving the blocks, even though I thought I tried to explain it clearly, and
I mean, it was quite clear to me that some girls, you see, were putting cubes on, but then they didn't know where was the dot, in the sense of the dot that would make the line, because the cube covers a whole square.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, for some of them, whether having just worked with dots and then going to cubes was, for some of them, definitely a hurdle.
Yeah.
But let's try and see some of the elements that were there that perhaps weren't present when I watched you teach before. I mean, there was much more a feeling of enjoyment in the whole lesson. I felt they were sort of more with you, and there was a better rapport. You obviously have begun to use group work, and the more they do it, the more they'll get into the habit of doing it. So that's something to really cultivate, I think, in the future. Their concentration, I think, was better overall, because we had 2 separate chunks, so we didn't sort of get too long in one session. Again, do you remember we talked last time about relevance and why are we doing it? It was lovely, you see, when we got that link back to the poems that they'd done in Year 7. But have we at any stage talked about why we're interested in straight lines on Y and X axes?
I don't believe we have.
Well, perhaps that's your next huge challenge to consider. How can I make that relevant to their lives when to them it seems just rather abstract?
Yeah.
So if you keep on building on all those hints of better things that we saw today, your teaching's going to get better and better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Claire. I think my teaching's improved by making my lessons more enjoyable. And if they find them more enjoyable, then it must be you're a better teacher. I'm beginning to get the sort of like towards maybe the foothills of becoming an outstanding teacher. But I don't think I'm anywhere near the sort of even halfway up.